Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. I always say for companies that are trying to sell their business, you need a compelling message that captures the imagination of a buyer. Well, I've got a really interesting guest here that's going to focus on messaging because whether you're in M&A or you're just marketing your own services, you have to have a similar message to capture that audience. With me today, Trey Griggs, founder and chief encouragement officer of Beta Consulting. Trey, welcome to the hot seat.
Spencer, it's good to be with you today. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Now, before we heat things up, sir, why don't you just take 20 seconds and tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing over there at Beta.
Yeah, we're helping companies build their brand to become a known and trusted brand. And we focus on helping them tell their story, their foundational message, as well as helping them tell their customer stories as well, creating customer testimonial videos, and then what to do with that from a marketing perspective, where to put that on your website, how to use it in social media, how to use it in email context. So it's all about creating a message that's compelling, that creates something that will entice customers and prospects to want to be a part of that story, and then how to disseminate that.
All right. Well, let's jump right in there, sir. So I got to know like the genesis of this. At what point did you realize that there was a problem to solve here as it related to businesses within the transportation logistics trying to message and talk about their service offerings?
It's definitely been an experience, kind of a innovative experience for me going through a lot of startup companies. I started my career in transportation at DAT Freight and Analytics, and they had a big marketing department and obviously a big brand within the industry. I mean, I don't think any freight broker or carrier, doesn't know who they are, and it's not their first phone call after they get their MC. So they had the marketing engine and everything running well, and so I didn't really understand what was happening. I just knew that I was getting inbound calls from a sales perspective. And then I went to work at a couple of startups. And what I realized is that with startups, they don't have any of that in place. A lot of times they haven't really thought through what their message is to the market. They might not be even doing any marketing. The marketing is really the salesperson making a phone call, sending an email, reaching out, those types of things. Nowadays, posting on social media. But a lot of startups didn't have any of that. And what I came to realize is that a lot of established companies don't even have a lot of that. Most of them were able to generate and drive revenue from one-on-one sales calls or going to conferences or things like that, but they still had never thought through what's their story, what is their message, and they're missing out on inviting customers in to be a part of their brand. That's the other side too, is that a lot of companies don't really think they have a brand. They think of brands like Nike or Chick-fil-A or these big brands, with logos and everybody knows who they are. But the truth is, brand is simply another word for reputation. And so every company has a brand, and are they building that brand? Are they, trying to invite people to come in and be a part of this story in a unique way? And again, a lot of companies just hadn't taken the time to do that. A lot of founders, that's not their strengths. And so I discovered that as being a part of these startups and having to be the one in the sales department that was creating the messaging, that was creating the pitch decks that we were using on our sales calls, that was crafting a lot of social media content. And I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but I just knew it needed to be done because it wasn't there. And so the more that I started to study that and the more I started to learn about it, I started to realize that I'm a salesperson who thinks like a marketer, who thinks about marketing. Sales is my niche. It's what I do, but I think about the world in terms of marketing and messaging. I've always been a writer. I wrote for newspapers in high school and college. I was the editor of the sports department in both of those, and I blogged quite a bit. I like to write. I like words. I like crafting those. So it's always been on my mind. And as I started just to realize, man, companies don't have that, especially in transportation. And so our goal is to help elevate brands, to really promote them to being brands that become known and trusted within our space.
So I'm curious, you kind of talk about these folks that there's a couple of different camps. One, they're not doing any of it in terms of the messaging, or maybe some are doing it and just not doing it well. How does someone know if they're not messaging well? I mean, what's the evidence of it?
Sure. So a couple of things. Obviously, if a company just isn't even known, if you're talking about a company in the marketplace and people are like, I've never heard of them, I've never heard of them, I've never heard of them, obviously, then there's a problem with marketing. They might be doing well. They might be doing really well because they have a founder or some salespeople who are really good at networking and making one-on-one presentations and selling, maybe word of mouth. I've got a couple of friends who don't do any marketing, but they're very successful because of word of mouth. So there's something to be said about having a great product or having a great service and asking your customers to refer you to other people. Again, I would tell every company they should do that. That's the first thing out of the gate. But not every product is going to be that great. Not every founder or salesperson is going to have that type of approach towards it. And so the number one thing is do people even know who you are? Do people know that company? I'm amazed at how many freight brokerages and even tech companies out there that just nobody knows about. And some of them are doing really good work, but nobody knows about it. And I like to think about Andrew Gazdecki, who's a marketing guru. He says, you can build the greatest product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. It's like a tree falling in the forest. It doesn't make sense. Nobody knows. It just doesn't exist. And so that's the number one thing is, do people know who you are? The second way to really understand if you're messaging correctly is, how do people react when they do come in contact with your brand? So when they come to your website, are they engaging? Are they sticking around? Are they reading a little bit more? Then the average time on a website is very small. If you start to beat the average times on a website, that means that people are interested in what you're saying. They're sticking around. And so are they clicking the buttons, the calls to action that you have? Are they moving to another page to learn more about something that you do? What does that look like? So it's all in the data and in the numbers. And if people aren't responding to your website, if they're not responding to your social media posts, if they're not responding to the emails that you send out, then there's a problem with messaging. Messaging almost always improves engagement. Almost always improves engagement. Usually the words.
So I'm curious, there's a lot of marketing gurus and experts and thought leaders around the space. Who are some folks that have influenced the way that you do business and the way that you think about bringing value to folks that have needs in these areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a couple of names that come to mind right away. First of all, Jesse Cole, who's the owner of the Savannah Bananas, the minor league baseball team in Savannah, which almost everybody who's listening to this has probably heard of because they're really good at marketing. They put a great product on the field. They're always thinking about the fans' experience. And everything that they do is to tailor to the fan experience, and then they do a really good job of telling those stories on social media, whether it's highlights from the games that they play, just goofy plays they make, or the things that they try out on the field, to some of the initiatives that they have that are really powerful. I know that they're really involved with foster care initiatives and encouraging people to become foster parents and to adopt. That's something that's on their heart. So they talk about that a lot, on their social media platforms, and tell those stories of families who are adopting and how they're part of the Savannah Banana family in that regard. And so Jesse Cole has been one that's really helped me think about how to be fans first as a business, and also what that means from telling stories and making it all about the fan experience. People like Gary Vaynerchuk, listen to him a lot. I think he's very practical in terms of what he does and just sharing what he does that's working. I listen to Simon Sinek a lot when I think about leadership, and he obviously has a lot about marketing as well, and understanding exactly why you're in business, or what your business is about, what your life is all about, like what's your why. A lot of those things have been really helpful. And then within our own industry, I think about people like Josh Breeze and the Freight Vana team and some of the work that they're doing over there. I pay attention to a lot of the people in our industry that are a part of marketing, like Blythe Brumleaf, who's phenomenal. Love getting a chance to learn from her. She's just phenomenal when it comes to websites and marketing in those areas. So there's several people within our industry that I lean on as well, including some of those other names that most people know.
No, I think that's terrific. And just to affirm what you said about the Savannah Bananas, I was calling my brother the other day trying to get our kids together for spring break. He said, "I'm sorry, we're committed. We're going to go see the Savannah Bananas." So,
That's
so
right.
clearly, really some extraordinary marketing work going on over there. And my brother's out in Texas, so that's
Yeah.
impressive. And so,
Yes, it is.
uh, let me transition a little bit. You can go provide value in the marketing world anywhere. Why do you continue to invest in relationships in the T&L space?
Um, Another great question. I mean, I think there's comfort and familiarity a little bit. This is the industry that I grew up in from a business perspective. Prior to this, I was a high school physics teacher and a youth pastor, living a totally different life. And when I got into sales after 15 months of door-to-door sales, selling office supplies, business to business, I was given the opportunity at DAT. That was my entrance into the space, and I just got to meet a lot of great people. I think the industry is not only one that is obviously necessary for our survival, but also just really good people in the industry that I've met. And so, I've thought about, what we do is not specific to transportation. We can do it everywhere else. But I think there's two things that keep us focused on transportation and logistics. And that is the people that we know. Like, we got really great relationships in this industry, and we love so many people here, and we want to serve them. But two, we also see a massive need in this industry. A lot of companies for years never really valued sales and marketing. I can't tell you how many companies only have one person in marketing or nobody in marketing, and they're putting it on the shoulders of the sales leader or salespeople to do marketing as well. And usually it doesn't end up happening. There just hasn't been a value or a prioritization put on that. And yet we see companies who market well, who do really well. Freight Vaughn is probably one of the best examples. They do a great job. Edge Logistics does a great job marketing their services as well. Green Screens does a phenomenal job marketing what they do on the tech side. We see companies who are winning by having great marketing, but it just hasn't been a priority. And so for us, it's a mission to create companies that are well-known brands that are known and trusted in our industry, really transform their business into a brand that people know.
When you talk about that, I'm reminded, in this past year, we celebrated 50 years of advising on business sales and acquisitions in the space. And my dad has said for decades, this is an industry that is elite when it comes to operations, but very mediocre when it comes to the financial management and, more specifically, marketing of their services. And from a value creation standpoint, I think that you're really honing in on what I believe is one of the greatest opportunities to differentiate from the competition from a value creation standpoint. Just because there's not a lot of people, of course there's some, but there's not a lot of folks that are clearly leading in this area. So let's talk about that for a second. What are some steps that some folks can take to begin differentiating in the way that they are engaging their prospective customers?
Well, first of all, it's a great question, and congratulations to your family on 50 years in business. That is a tremendous accomplishment. I think the longer that I'm in business, it's kind of like the longer that you're married, the more you realize that just staying married is really an accomplishment. It's hard to get two people that are different to stay together that long. It's hard to keep a business going that long. So congratulations to your family on that. That's incredible.
Well, thank you.
To answer your question, I go back to what I said at the very beginning is I think the foundation of all marketing starts with the message. It starts with the words that you use and how you want to present yourself to the marketplace and understanding your customer, intricately understanding your customer. If you don't understand what your customer wants and the problem that's keeping your customer from getting that thing that they want, then you're going to struggle in your storytelling. And again, you can throw a lot of marketing out there. You can have fun with it. You can throw memes out there, which again, I recommend you should do. But at some point, if you want to sell, you're going to have a message that resonates. You're going to have to be able to communicate in a way that they want to purchase, that they want to buy, they want to work with you. So to me, it all starts with messaging. And this is something that they can do with a consultant like myself, or it's something that they can do on their own. And we try to help companies understand how to do that, but they've got to sit down and talk through their customer is, talk through who they are, talk through what their process is. How easy is it for a customer to work with you? What does that process look like? Can you make it simple? Let me give you an example that's outside of our industry that will help people out. If I were somebody that wanted to help others lose weight, and I had this plan that I couldn't really communicate very well. It had like 10 steps. It was complex. It's hard to understand. You might be like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. It's just too much. But if I came to you and I said, hey, listen, Spencer, I know you want to drop 40 pounds. You mentioned that you want to get healthy for your kids. You want to be able to play with your grandkids someday and have the energy to do that. And I totally agree with you on that. I'm going to tell you what, losing weight's the first step. And then you can start to maybe build back muscle and get in shape. But let's get that extra weight off there. It's really simple. I'm going to send you some meals. They're prepackaged. All you got to do is eat them, drink 5 water bottles a day, and watch the weight melt off. Can you do that? I mean, it's really simple,
Yeah.
right? It's really simple. And so how do people work with your company? What's the process? What can they expect when they say yes? Like, what is your guarantee to them? And what does success look like whenever they work with you? I mean, Spencer, just imagine rolling around with your kids and not being tired and not being achy the next day or sore and just having energy to go outside and run around with them. Wouldn't that be great? Like, that's me just painting a picture for you of what it's like to lose those 40 pounds. Like, these are the things that companies don't do well, is to make it simple, make it easy to understand, and really capture that vision of what the future looks like should they work with you. And again, that starts with the messaging. So to answer your question, that's where I would start is, do we know our message? And everything gets informed from that. Your website gets informed from that. Your social media content is informed by that. Your email marketing is informed by that. Your blogs are informed by that. It all starts with who are we speaking to? What do they want? What's their problem? And how can we uniquely help them as a guide to do that? Let's figure out a way to communicate that so that they want to be a part of that. Let me say one more thing real quick. The power of story is incredible, and people don't understand this. We all have cell phones that disrupt us throughout the day. They interrupt us left and right. Sometimes intentionally we pick them up, and sometimes it just rings or buzzes or whatever happens. And yet, if you went to a really good movie this afternoon, you would spend 2 hours forgetting that you even own a cell phone because it's so good. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with this, is having people want to engage with you so much that other things don't even distract them. They want to be a part of this. It's like the Savannah Bananas. You see something from them online, you want to check it out because it's so powerful.
I love that. I think that's pretty captivating. So let me transition on a personal side. We were talking offline. You mentioned it earlier in this interview. You're a writer, have been, and you're actually going to be releasing a book soon. So tell us about that.
That's correct. And I wish I had a name for it yet. The inspiration for the name has not quite come yet, but the book is on the power of self-awareness. And it's a bit of a memoir of my journey and my experience. But to say it bluntly, I've struggled my entire life with confidence, with really believing in myself, which surprises a lot of people because when they hear me speak, I think they think, oh, this guy, he's an extrovert. He's a communicator. He sounds sure of himself. I'm sure this guy's just filled with confidence. And if you look at my resume, it's not bad. I played 2 sports in college. I was a sports editor for the newspaper in college. I did a lot of really cool things in my life. It's been really fun. But for some reason, Spencer, I always felt like I was just getting lucky. Like I was just getting lucky, like things were just good things were happening to me. And it didn't make a lot of sense. And there were times where I really struggled to believe in myself to the point that I could never ask a girl out in college. I never asked a girl out in college. Couldn't do it. Couldn't go up and ask if I didn't know it was a yes. And I wanted to understand, why is that? Why is it that I don't believe in myself? Why is it that other people believe in me more than I believe in myself? Like, where is this coming from? And it took a lot of digging and a lot of research to understand that it had to do a lot with how my dad parented me, some of the things he said to me. And the reason he parented me the way he did was because of his experience as a kid as well. The science tells us that our worldview, the way that we think about ourselves, about the world, what we believe about ourselves, about money, about religion, about politics, about whatever, it's solidified by the age of 13. Well, the crazy thing about that, Spencer, is that we didn't get to choose what that influence was. We didn't get to choose what that wiring was. And yet as adults, we've got to learn to live with that. I think it's the reason why people do things throughout their lives and don't really even understand why they're doing them, because it's ingrained in the wiring of the brain, but they've never really evaluated it to understand it and to try to change it. I don't believe you can build the future that you want without evaluating the past that you've lived. I think it's really important that people become very self-aware, and it's very powerful in many ways. It's powerful in relationships, especially marital relationships. You got 2 people that grew up differently trying to come together. That's hard. That's conflict. Yeah. It's powerful for parenting. It's powerful for leaders. And I think most importantly, it's really powerful for entrepreneurs. Think about how many people have great ideas. They have visions of something they want to accomplish, but there's a voice in their head that tells them, no, don't do it. It's almost always fear. And the reason is most of us, Spencer, grew up in schools where all we learned for years and years and years is don't fail, don't fail, don't fail. Right. And the easiest way not to fail is to not try. And so I think there's something inside the brains of so many people that they don't go after these visions and dreams they have to create something, whether it's a business, a song, a book, a family, whatever it is, because they're afraid to fail. And that's because it was programmed earlier in their life. And if they understood that, they might figure out a way to overcome that and to build things. The people that miss out are you and I. We miss out on the products and the services and the books and the art and everything that never gets created because people don't try. And I think that's a direct product of being programmed early to not fail.
Well, excellent stuff. I got one last question, a little bit of a wild card for you, Trey. So
All right.
You hit um, an emotional spot with me. You're talking about this by the age of 13, pretty much all of this is programmed in kids. My son is going to turn 13 in a couple of months, and so drawing upon your experience as a youth pastor, as someone who's had your journey and battled with confidence, what advice would you give to young Trey at 13 or young Hudson who's about to be 13? As for what is the secret to getting confidence?
I mean, I think that it is learning how to give yourself credit for what you've done well. That's a part that I write about in the book, is learning how to talk to yourself about that. But I think too, it's learning how to accept a compliment. That's made a massive difference for me. In the past, if somebody would compliment me on something, having a good game or writing a good story or whatever it might be, I'd probably brush it off like, anybody can do that, or, whatever we do to kind of try to be humble. But a lot of times it's because we don't believe in ourselves. And I had a counselor teach me this one time, and I had a person demonstrate it separately. And when those two came together, it crystallized it for me. But he taught me how to accept a compliment. And he said, Trey, when you don't accept a compliment from somebody, not only are you basically denying them, like you're invalidating what they're saying, but you're also removing a deposit into your confidence bank account in your head. Like you're not allowing that to happen. And he goes, you just need to accept it. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to give one back. You just need to accept it. And so he had me practice accepting a compliment. So now if somebody were to compliment me on something that I'm doing, I'd almost say the same thing every time. I would say, wow, Spencer, that is so kind of you to say. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's it. Like, I don't need to justify it. I don't need to send one back necessarily. I just need to accept it. And by accepting it, I'm validating what you're saying to me, but I'm also putting a deposit into my internal confidence account and bank account in my head. That's just one more thing that says, you can do it. You can do it. And part of that was giving myself credit for the things that I did in the past. The reason I played basketball in college is because I was in the gym putting in the work. Yes, other people helped me out, but I had to give myself credit for what I had done, and that's positive and negative. But we got to be honest with ourselves, and we got to learn how to give ourselves credit. And so I think the biggest thing is I would teach myself at 13 or tell Hudson, learn how to accept a compliment. That's going to build your confidence and give you justifiable confidence, not irrational confidence. We know those people that are arrogant and too confident, too full of themselves, but to truly have justifiable confidence to say, I know I can play well in this game because I've put in the work. I put in the practice. People have noticed. People have said it. Accept those compliments. That's really, really helpful.
Well, I thank you for putting a deposit of knowledge into our network and sharing your wisdom with our group, folks. That's going to do it for us in the hot seat, Trey. We will see you next time.